Today, I don't think I really need to get into my usual introduction. This episode of My Hero Academia is nothing short of incredible, and it honestly blew my expectations out of the water. There are certain times in shonen anime where you'll see some sort of MacGuffin introduced that gets our main character out of trouble and allows them to overcome whatever challenge they have in front of them. In this episode of My Hero, we deal with something a bit similar, and yet done in an extremely interesting way. I'd like to talk about the rest of the episode first, and bring this up again when we get to that point. But honestly, we're about to dive into the absolute best episode of this season of the anime, and one of the best the show has produced so far. I'd highly recommend making sure you've seen this episode in some way before continuing on with this review. And I'd like to preface things by reminding everyone watching that if you're a manga reader, do not leave any spoilers down in the comments when talking about future episodes of My Hero Academia. I don't mind a discussion about where you think things might be going if you're not a source reader, but if you are, please do not ruin the experience for anime-only fans. So things open up in this important episode with a flashback to the start of the raid where Ryukyu and the others have finally managed to restrain the large Hassaikai member who attacked at the start of the raid. His name is Rikia, and his quirk is energy suction, allowing him to suck out the life force of those that he touches. Thankfully, he is no longer a problem since he has been taken into custody, though this is My Hero, so it can't be that easy. The drug he took before coming out is finally taking effect, and he begins absorbing life energy from police officers, Frappi, and Uraraka without even touching them. Rikia breaks free of the binds he was placed in and immediately begins fighting Ryukyu once again, as she is forced to turn back into a dragon. As the battle picks up, we are finally given a true introduction to Nejiri's quirk, which turns out to be Surge. Surge allows Nejiri to convert her own life energy in the shockwaves, and they end up coming out as a spiral, so they're not particularly fast. She shoots a few at Rikia and distracts him for the moment, though something quite weird ends up happening. Deku suddenly appears and calls out to Uraraka, explaining to her that their objective is directly below a nearby intersection, and that they need to get down there and help the pro heroes against Overhaul. A combined attack from the four heroes left above ground on Rikia leads them to the intersection where the ground cracks open and drops them all down below, right into the end of the previous episode, with Deku looking on in shock. Rightfully so, Uraraka and Frappi are incredibly confused to see Deku in the middle of fighting Overhaul. We're sent back up for a second to see that it was Toga who had transformed into him and told the heroes where to go, with Twice and Toga as Mr. Compress, or rather a copy of him created by Twice, who was used to help them dig out of the underground using his quirk. Their plan isn't stopping there though, as they force the Compress clone down into the battle to try and kidnap Eri for them, much to its dismay. Ryukyu notices him sliding down from above, but Frappi and Uraraka have their eyes on the downed and hurting Tsunade instead. Deku calls out for the two to help Tsunade as he takes off towards Eri, but a pillar is created just as he gets in close to her that sends her flying into the air and at the same time blocks off a nearing copy Compress from reaching her. Overhaul creates another pillar that drives himself up into the air, bringing him close up to the hole created in the ceiling that leads to the outside world while also allowing him to grab hold of Eri. Not wanting to let him get away, Deku leaps up and his resolve begins to bubble within as he reaches out. Togata's cape in the process has flown upwards as well from all the rocks, and it catches Eri's eye. She thinks back to Togata originally helping her and so deeply wishes that the fighting could stop as she doesn't want to see anyone else die. And with those feelings, her horn began to glow bright yellow. We flash back once more to Overhaul speaking with the old leader of the Hassaikai, discussing the leader's daughter. Apparently she abandoned Eri, saying that her husband died because of her and that she is a cursed child. One day when Eri's father reached for her, he just completely vanished after some sort of ability manifested itself within Eri in the exact moment that doesn't seem to come from either side of the family. The leader tells Overhaul that what she has is similar to his quirk, and asks him to watch over her while also investigating what she can do. Upon cutting her open several times and watching what her cells do to living beings, Overhaul deduces that her quirk is far beyond what his can accomplish, and that it is the power to rewind. Just as the flashback ends, Eri's quirk activates and splits apart Shin and Overhaul, causing him to revert to his normal appearance and allowing her to break free of one of his arms to grab Togata's cape. She sees Deku leaping through the air and finally accepts that the heroes will not give up until she is saved no matter how much their lives are at risk. She leaps from the pillar and uses the cape as a parachute, aiming to be saved by Deku. What follows here is a rather powerful scene of Deku leaping through the debris that fall his way as he propels forward to try and reach Eri. While the scene plays out, a song called Might You begins to play, which is essentially a version of You Say Run with English lyrics, provided by Michaela Phillips at America's Got Talent fame. It's a really powerful song that I definitely encourage you to check out and listen to the full version of. It can really get you to feel something. If you enjoyed this on its own, it's actually the featured song in My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, the new film that I'm sure will be getting over here at America at some point soon. Finally, Deku is able to catch a leaping Eri in his arms, holding her tight and promising her that he will never let her go again. Overhaul quickly leaps back into action though, and activates his quirk again, sending tentacles made of concrete towards Deku, and then leads us to one of the most well-animated cuts of the episode. Deku activates One For All and begins to propel himself off of the tentacles towards Overhaul, seemingly disappearing for a moment and using the pressure of that to destroy most of the things around the two fighters and send concrete hurtling down to the ground below. Night Eye, who is being protected by the others as this happens, stares up at the fight with a somber look in his eyes, perhaps realizing that something has finally changed in Deku. In perhaps one of the most shocking moments of this series, Deku reappears before our eyes high above the city with Eri in his arms. Down in the hole, the confused heroes question what exactly just occurred. Uraraka immediately questioning where Deku went. Those questions would need to wait a moment, as Overhaul has stood up before them, bloodied and broken. He fixes himself and is even in confusion himself, putting two and two together that Eri used her quirk without knowing how to use it, or even what it does. The heroes prepare for Overhaul to target them as he uses his quirk to break down Rukia, but Night Eye tells them they don't need to worry, as for the time being, he will focus entirely on going after Deku and Eri, and that from there, he will kill Deku. Deku questions himself while still free-falling with Eri in hand, how he was somehow able to use One For All at 100% and not break his legs, all the while Eri's horn continues to glow, meaning she is putting her quirk to use. She looks up at Deku, and all he can do is look back with a big smile on his face, just as All Might would do in a situation like this one. Rikuyu attempts to get into the fight to help Deku, but Night Eye tells her not to, saying that with the shape she and the others are in, they'd be of no help. Uraraka quips back at him saying that it doesn't matter because no one truly knows how the future will turn out, and that nothing should stop them from trying to fight back. Deku finally lands back on the street and slides away down it, stopping his momentum finally and having no true damage done to him at all from doing so. Night Eye tells Froppy to go find Togata and help him for now, and then asks Uraraka and Rikuyu to come to the surface with him as we get a shot of the monster Overhaul has become, heading up there himself. Deku feels as though his body is both on fire and yet extremely cold, and he quickly takes note that his entire body feels incredible. With all of his injuries healed and One For All running at 100%, finally he allows Eri to stand on her own and kneels down in front of her, realizing that this might be due to her power. He suddenly doubles over in pain, feeling like his body is being pulled at from the inside. Overhaul finally puts himself out from the hole and informs Deku that Eri has no idea how to control the power that she has. Deku manages to grab her again through the pain and leaps out of the way of an Overhaul attack as he again reiterates that she has no idea how to make her quirk stop. His disgusting body, reminiscent of some kind of Yu-Gi-Oh card, is now massive, but it's still all Overhaul in control, as he continues to make Eri sound like some sort of tool. He tells Deku that if he continues to touch her, he will be rewound into nothingness like everything else. Deku doubles down and ties Eri to his back using Togata's cape, saying that he'll never hand her over back to Overhaul. Finally, Deku puts two and two together and deduces that every time he was destroying his body using One For All, Eri was immediately healing him. With that knowledge in mind, the only way he can stop himself from being completely rewound to nothing by Eri is to keep pushing One For All to its limits so she can keep rewinding his injuries away. He then tells Eri something that nobody has ever said to her before, that her quirk is a blessing, not a curse. Deku activates One For All full Cowling at 100%, and suddenly it looks like he has gone Super Saiyan God. Super Saiyan. He stands confident against Overhaul with Eri tied to him, and Overhaul begins a spiel about just how far Eri's quirk can go when developed, going as far as being able to completely unmutate his species and leave it at its most basic form where it started from. The power to completely destroy quirks and get rid of the natural order of how the world now is, that is what Eri is capable of doing. He launches an attack against Deku, shooting an insult towards him that a punk like him wouldn't know what to do with an asset like her. Deku again fades from view as he is attacked once more, going so fast with One For All that he can't be seen. He reappears directly beneath the part of Overhaul's original body that is exposed and uses a smash of such force that Overhaul is sent flying into the sky. On the ground, Toga and Twice react with shock at the power Deku's now displaying. They'll quickly wonder what has become of Mr. Compress. We quickly see him being crushed under the claw of Rikuyu, and then Uraraka traveling upwards of Sir Night Eye in her arms so she could get him some help. Back in the sky, even after such a powerful move, Deku begins to feel his body again rewinding due to Eri's quirk, which is now amplified in strength. He harkens back to when he first got One For All, and had to figure out how to control it and use it properly as to not destroy his body. As Overhaul is tumbling through the air, he has a flashback to when the old leader reprimanded him for starting a fight. He left him in critical condition, and all because the guy was stepping on Hassaikai turf. He did this to set an example to remind everyone who is boss, though the old leader just doesn't agree with the way he's been acting. He brings up knowing Overhaul has started a new venture away from him that involves drugs, and that while he understands Overhaul was just trying to do all he can for the Yakuza to repay the old leader for taking him in, that he believes Overhaul needs to stop going so far. Overhaul is looking over a city with Chrono, lamenting that the leader can't seem to see that ideals won't turn back the tide. Chrono admits that it does seem to be a bit crazy to think the Yakuza could rule the underworld again with how much the world has changed. Overhaul doubles down on his plans and again goes over his plan to use Eri. They release an imperfect product to aid in their research, one that won't erase quirks completely, but merely for a short period of time. Once there is a demand from people for a drug like this to help them erase someone's quirk, they'll sell the finished product at a high price. And from there, they'll create a serum that rewinds the damage done and restores quirks for even more money, completely cornering the market. Using Eri's flesh, they're going to fuel a drug war that pits heroes against villains and reap all the rewards from it. This idea doesn't sit well with the old leader at all, and he questions how Overhaul can think of a living, breathing person like Eri as nothing more than a weapon to advance his ideals. He tells Overhaul that he is done with him, and that seems to set our villain off as he steps towards the old leader and uses his quirk on him to leave him in a comatose state, as we saw in a few episodes prior. He says that he'll heal him once the plan is done, and the Yakuza rule once again. Overhaul regains consciousness and it angrily announces that no one wants to look at the big picture, promising that what he will do is tear down the world to its framework. He angrily tells Deku that his justice is small and that he can only see what is right in front of him and find sentimental value where there is none. Then, in one of the best cuts of the series so far, Deku launches an incredible smash attack to something you'd see from Saitama and tears apart Overhaul's body with terrifying precision. No more than a second after the punches connect, Overhaul looks up with what can only be described as bewilderment at Deku, rearing back once more to clock him one final time with an incredible punch filled with impact frames, smears, and impressive debris animation. On the ground following the attack, Night-Eye peers up and in a shocked state remarks that he saw a future where Overhaul won and killed Deku. Yet the future playing out in front of him was something he never saw coming. The realization comes over Night-Eye that this playing out before him might mean that the future indeed can be changed. The episode comes to an end with a smirk coming over the face of Night-Eye as the blinking effect accompanies it. Now to me, I think that probably means that Night-Eye has lost consciousness from the blood loss and damage done to his internal body. Quite frankly, it worries me a lot that Night-Eye might die in the next episode, though part of me isn't entirely believing that yet. When you look at things from one side, it's entirely possible that an actual serious character is in store for us after so long in the show's run. However, hardly anyone has actually died of importance, and Night-Eye has been left in such a critical condition that I wouldn't be surprised if this is the point where it finally happens. It would really suck to see him go down like this, as we've only gotten to see him for half a season's worth of content. However, it's entirely possible that good vibes could prevail, and he makes it through this and survives to tell the future another day. I don't want to dwell too much on the obvious, but this episode was tremendous. The lure that we went through during this season at certain points is all forgiven from me thanks to this tremendous episode. We finally learned what Eri was truly capable of, we got to see Deku at a point where his strength rivaled that of All Might at his best, and we were treated to some wonderfully animated sequences by the wonderful people at Bones. This episode is an absolute treat and worth a watch for any anime fan, not just those who have been enjoying My Hero Academia thus far. The preview for next week shows us that our heroes have indeed successfully defeated Overhaul and managed to arrest a few other members of the Hassaikai as well. Deku comments that the sacrifices made to defeat Overhaul were much too great. He lists off those that took a beating and put in work during this siege, and ends just before he would mention Night-Eye, instead giving us a shot of All Might in a hospital room surrounded by others. The episode might be called Bright Future, but as I mentioned before, it might not be for Night-Eye. Well, that's going to do it for my review of My Hero Academia Season 4, Episode 13, Infinite 100%. If you guys enjoyed this one, let me know in the comments below, and subscribe to Mystic Sage and notifications on so you don't miss my review of the 4th season's next great episode. I've got a lot of great videos about My Hero Academia already on the channel, and about plenty of other anime, as well as more to come. I hope you guys have been enjoying these reviews and the show so far as well, and I'll be back at it next week with a review of the next exciting My Hero episode.